Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Started filming this maybe half an hour ago and then realized there's a lot of information here and one video might be just way too long for everyone and be way too boring. So I'm going to split it up. This is not going to be a track video. This is not going to be a video of me installing parts on the car. It's going to be about me talking about a problem that I have with the car right now and what I'm going to do to fix it. And so in this video specifically, we are going to talk about fuel starvation in the FA20 DIT. And not the last track day, but the one prior at Thunderhill East. In session 2, I encountered fuel starvation coming out of the last set of right-hand corners onto the front straight. And I've got the video queued up for you here. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. I'm going to go ahead and play it here real quick so you guys can watch it. Okay, probably didn't catch it there. You most likely just noticed that all of a sudden I gave up or I let off the throttle on the car and stopped kind of going for it in the lap. One of the subscribers actually noticed this and asked what happened. And previously on the older kind of race render layout or the gauge layout on the video, I had things like fuel pressure and air fuel ratio, which would have been much easier to spot. Whereas now that information's gone, tried to clean it up a little bit. But if you guys think that the older layout is more interesting, let me know and we can bring that back. Or if you think this one is better, let me know too. Or if you think you'd like to see some other information, just tell me. But yes, in any case, you see me go through the double right-handed corner, shift gears, and then immediately back out of the throttle. And the car has done this before. So I've experienced fuel starvation in this particular section of the track prior in one other event, but it occurred much later in the day. So previously it happened in session 3, a couple of laps in, which would put it at roughly 20 laps kind of completed at the track. So halfway through session 3 is about 20 laps. Each session might be 6 to 7 to maybe 8 laps. So I'm guesstimating that was about 20 laps in. And at the end of 2 sessions is typically when I know to start putting fuel back into the tank. You finish 2 sessions, you're about half a tank, or at least the gauge is at half a tank. It's kind of the worst, not the worst spot in the gauge, but the most dull spot in the gauge. So you might have less than half a tank and it'll read half a tank. But yeah, the difference here is that in this video, it's happening on the 4th lap of session 2. So it's happening about maybe 7 to 8 laps sooner than it would have normally happened in the past. And nothing has changed with the tune of the car. So the rate at which I'm guzzling gas going around the track, for better, more or less shouldn't change, right? So it's not like I suddenly started using fuel faster and that's why I hit fuel starvation sooner. I think what's happening here is that with the bigger brakes on the car, with the wider tires, I can brake later, pull a higher G in going into the corner under braking, and then continue that high G in through the corner. And so at some point, the fuel is either sloshing out of the basket, and the fuel pump just simply doesn't have any fuel to pick up and send to the motor. I've queued up the data log here from the lap just to kind of show you. So me as a driver, I can feel it immediately when I hit fuel cut or when something is wrong and the power just falls away on the motor, which is why you can see me back off in the video. And I can go back and look at data from the data logger to confirm kind of the suspicion, right? So here is the lap. Right here is the double right-handed corner, and this is the front straight. And let's quickly go over kind of the legend here so you understand what colors are what. So this pink color, I guess, is going to be air-fuel ratio right here. My accelerator, I believe, is going to be this blue color. Yep. Fuel pressure is gray, and then engine RPM is purple. So if we recall in the video, I get back on the throttle in the first right-hand corner. I kind of back off the throttle. I get back on the throttle. I shift, get in the gas, and then immediately get out. Like, that's when I know something's wrong. And so if we look at this blue trace here, this is my accelerator pedal. And then keep an eye on the position of the car on the map. As I scroll through, this is a right-handed corner. I'm on the gas, 100%. Back off the gas. Start to get back into the gas. I'm wide open, right? And then I get off, and this is the shift. This is the shift happening, right? I get back into the gas and immediately get off. So here we can look at engine RPM. That's climbing, and I'm at wide open throttle. And here we can look at air-fuel ratio, and it looks like, you know, it's steady, and fuel pressure is relatively steady as well. But right at the end of that last corner, as I come out, I'm still wide open throttle, but you can see here this gray line starts to fall away, and my fuel pressure just plummets. And it's different. It's different than, say, over here, where the fuel pressure also plummets, but I'm not on the gas. Right, and this is the same everywhere else in this data log. You know, here fuel pressure plummets, but I'm getting off the gas. Here fuel pressure is plummeting, but I'm wide open throttle. And so what that's resulting in is a very lean air-fuel ratio. And you can see my AFR go from like 11.2, 11.4, and it climbs 13, 17. You know, not good, essentially. And you can blow motors like this, right? This is exactly how you can blow a motor at the track, fuel starvation. So I have a problem, and I know I have to fix it. You know, prior to this, it was refuel the car every 2 sessions. Now, if it's refuel the car every session, it's sort of a pain in the butt. And then on top of that, you know, I'm not going to a gas tank, or I'm sorry, like a gas station with a fuel pump that automatically clicks off when your tank is full. I've got 5-gallon jugs. So if I have to do this every session, I'm kind of guesstimating how much I'm putting in, and it's never going to be full. And then on top of that, I have to mix ethanol in with regular 91. And every time I do that, I've got to, you know, let the car drive 2 to 3 miles for the mixture to really kind of mix through, so that the ethanol content is stable and not changing when I'm or changing wildly as I'm on track, because that could also lean your motor out and blow it up. So the solution is either a fuel cell or a surge tank. And I opted for a surge tank. So this is a surge tank here. You want the surge tank to be tall and not wide, and the pump's going to be down low in the tank. And you want it tall and not wide, so that when you go through a corner, it doesn't all slosh away from the pump. As long as it's very tall and very narrow, it's always going to be, the pump's always going to be submerged in fuel. The way this whole system kind of works, I've drawn like a really, really shitty picture for you guys, is kind of outlined here. And I'll kind of go through it here real quick. So E is your motor. R stands for radium. This is going to be the surge tank. M is going to be the master side of your stock fuel tank. And S is going to be the slave side of your stock fuel tank. So believe it or not, the fuel system or the fuel tank in the WRX and the STI is kind of 2 different saddles or 2 different bladders. There's one on the left side and one on the right side, or in this case, the master is going to be on the passenger side of the car and the slave is going to be on the driver's side of the car. And so when you fill it up, when you fill up the car, it equalizes the fuel across these two tanks, or these two saddles, and there's a crossover pipe. And as the fuel pump is pumping fuel out to the motor, it's using the Venturi effect to draw fuel out of the slave side, or the slave saddle, into the master side of the tank. There is no pump in the slave side of the tank. This is a kind of like passive system. So the fuel pump always has to be pumping fuel for it to be drawing fuel out of the slave side of the tank. And there's a crossover pipe for that. And then on the WRX, there's one additional fitting. So there's one fitting here for the crossover pipe, and then there's one fitting that runs through a hard line to the motor. When we put the surge tank in, what's happening is that because this tank is very wide and this tank is very narrow, under hard cornering, the fuel can slosh away from the basket or the fuel pump, and it won't over here in the surge tank. So this fuel pump inside the master side of your saddle is going to be constantly filling the surge tank up with fuel. And the surge tank will have its own pump that will pump fuel out to the motor. Because this master pump is always pumping fuel, this tank will fill up. And so there has to be a line that runs out of the surge tank back into the fuel basket. And that is one of the first challenges with this surge tank. At the time, I didn't want to modify the WRX fuel basket to accept a return line from the surge tank. In hindsight, I may have been able to just buy a STI basket, because the STI basket has a return line. It's not a return line designed to come back from the surge tank. It's actually designed to come back from the motor. So in an STI, there would be an additional line coming back from the motor back to the fuel tank. The WRX is different. The FA20 does not have a return line, and it's a dead-end system. So once the fuel makes it up to the motor, it stays there until it's completely consumed. So there's an additional fitting on the STI fuel basket that the WRX doesn't have. And I didn't want to modify the WRX fuel basket, and I should have just bought an STI fuel basket, but instead I bought this sweet piece, which is the Radium fuel basket, right? And it has a return port because it's also designed to work with an STI. Conveniently, though, I will use that return port as the return from the surge tank. The other great thing about this basket is that it has a check valve, and that check valve is designed to keep the fuel from coming out of this basket, I guess under braking or under acceleration. It depends on the way this check valve, where this check valve is pointing, whether forward or backwards, I don't know. You may be able to use this without a surge tank and get a couple more laps before you hit fuel cut or fuel starvation. But really the right way to do it is with the surge tank. So that's the solution here that I'm implementing into the car, and it's actually caused a whole bunch of headaches. The first one is that I can't put fuel systems into the trunk of the car without putting a bulkhead between the trunk area of the car and the passenger compartment, per some of the racing sanctioning bodies around here. Not that I'm racing the car, but the moment I do that, they want like a bulkhead or a firewall, so that in case anything happens and you get in an accident and any of these things rupture, that if there's a fire, it's not going to make its way in very quickly into the passenger compartment. So the car's got to go back to TC Design to have a bulkhead welded in. And I figured at the same time, the guys can install all these parts. I've got an assortment of fittings and blah, 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 that'll go with them. And essentially the way I've kind of spec'd it out is this this surge tank can reuse the hard lines, or this fueling setup can reuse the hard lines that are currently in the car right now, right? So the lines that you would connect everything to, the factory basket to, this system will connect to. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't need a really, big diameter hose, because I don't need a boatload of fuel, because I don't make 500, 600, 700 horses. The car only makes 350 horses. The factory fuel lines are going to be just fine. I don't need that volume of fuel. For some of the guys that have STIs that are making a lot more power, you'll see them just run dedicated lines underneath the car to a fuel pressure regulator on the motor, or right off the motor, or on the fuel rail. So I think this setup is pretty clean. It should be very easy to install. And at the same time, they can, custom crimp AN lines and all that kind of stuff, and figure out where to put the basket. I'm sorry, not the basket, but the surge tank, so that it's safe and follows in all the rules and all that jazz. Because the last thing I want to do is do that, show up to tech, and then not pass. The other headache that has come from this, addressing this fuel starvation issue, is the fact that there's a fuel pressure regulator on the surge tank, which is good, but I need to set that fuel pressure regulator to whatever the pressure is that comes off the stock basket. So believe it or not, the stock basket actually has a pressure regulator built into it. And I spoke with my tuner, Ron Watson, and he was saying that once I put this regulator in, I'm going to need to retune the car, which is fine, except for the fact that the car is catless, and he no longer tunes catless cars. And I don't want to buy a new J-pipe, so I'm on the hunt for a new tuner. And I've got a couple of guys in mind, but if you guys have some really good experiences or have any recommendations, please let me know. But as you can imagine, there's a whole logistical nightmare associated with dropping this car off, having the guys at TC Design install all this, weld in a bulkhead, and then getting a new tune, a base mat from a tuner, so that I can drive away with the car once I go pick it up. So hopefully that's interesting to some of you guys. That is the challenge right now with the car in terms of fuel starvation. There's some other small little things going into the car, like a fuel filter and all this other stuff. But that is pretty much the main reason why the radium stuff is going in. And hopefully that helps anyone out there who may or may not be, who may be experiencing the same things. I should say one of the advantages of a surge tank, besides fuel starvation, is that you can run way less fuel in your fuel tank, right? So right now, it's sort of like a logistic nightmare to bring gas to the track. And I'm bringing way more than I need to, because I have to keep refilling the car at half a tank. But if I could run it all the way down to a quarter tank, that'd be a lot easier. And on top of that, I'm probably burning off 100 pounds worth of fuel, and the car will set a better lap time. So yeah, that is, I guess we'll call that part one of this video in regards to kind of fuel starvation. There's some other projects here that I'm working on with the car, which is radiator ducting, battery relocation, and then what's the last one? Kind of like a cold air intake for the car. And I figure we'll save that for the next video, because this one's already 20 minutes long. So if you guys are interested in any of that stuff, that video should be a lot shorter. And we'll put that together here shortly, so you guys can kind of follow along on that one. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, ask them in the comments section. Hopefully this one was not too dry or not too nerdy for all you guys. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you at the next video. Take care. Bye.